Brakatiya Howell, Brakatiya Shai, Brakatiya Howell, Brakatiya Shai, Brakatiya Howell, Brakatiya Howell, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rachakudash. Belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to the whole elect out there, you Akim, the Zadakim, that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. Alright, on the pre-Shaman, this week's topic is going to be building upon the Iran-Israel war, fake war. I'm going to call it that because, again, I was inspired by Candace Owens. She was speaking, and she was just like, this war, it's a pretext. And then this Edomite that she was with there, let's get this straight, this is the bankers' war. But what they got to understand is, them bankers that fund these wars, all right, fuck them. This is the Most High's thing, all right? This is the Most High's war. You know, when you go into the history of Iran, I'm talking about all three Gulf Wars. You have three Persian Gulf Wars, but they have, you know, different names, whether it be Desert Storm or Persian Gulf War and all this type of things. But that region over there, you see, at one point it was ruled, like the Middle East was ruled by the Ottoman Empire, right? And then after World War II, the British pretty much split that whole region up, how they divided it. And they promised certain people independence, which they, you know, never trust the devil. He has a forked tongue, all right? And didn't come through on that. So, let's say, for example, like Kuwait, when you read about Basra, that's located in Kuwait. Before before World War I and the British split this thing up, you had certain parts that was still considered Iraq, the land of that territory of Iraq. All right. That's how come Saddam Hussein said, yo, Kuwait is really Iraq. But Kuwait eventually got their independence and broke off from Iraq. You have the Kurds, the Kurdish people, if you will, that are north of Iraq. Guess what? Before World War I, parts of their land got divided up to where parts of it is in North Iraq, parts of it is in Turkey, and then parts of it, I believe, is it Turkey? They got split up. They're in northern Iraq, which are enemies to Iraq. The Kurds had a beef with Saddam Hussein because they wanted their independence, but they got, you know, their land was divided into North Iraq, Turkey, and I forgot the other three. But the point is, they got divided up, and they have different religions. You have the Sunni over there, the Shia over there. Basically, the Sunni and the Shia, they're both Muslims, but they kind of differ on who they believe Muhammad said should lead after he died or whatever. But that whole land is divided and broken up. And you have certain certain people in the Middle East that are like, we should unite all, or pretty much all Arab people should be one. You know, like they're nationalists, right? And you have certain people that's trying to be westernized. Like, for example, like the Shah of Iran, he was a puppet leader, okay? But there's a rich history amongst fighting over that land, and that shit the bankers can't control. That's in the hands of the Lord. The Most High is stirring these people's minds how you will. And a prime example of that is Israel and Iran didn't originally start off beefing. They were actually, after the revolution in Iran in 1979, when you had Ayatollah Khomeini, who wanted to make Iran more of a theocracy. When I say theocracy, I mean like a leader that they think is some sort of divine leader. And he wanted to go back to the old ways. That's how come you see prior, when the Shah was in power, of that Western puppet, he was doing deals with the United States and Israel. When he was in power, Iran looked like the West. You had Iranian women in mini skirts, not mini skirts, but they were in skirts and shit, driving and all this type of shit. Ayatollah came in and said, fuck that. I'm gonna go back to the old ways. Now, when he took over Iran, that made Saddam Hussein nervous. He was scared because the Shia took over. And Saddam Hussein was a Sunni Muslim, but Iraq was majority Shia. So he feared that Iraq, he would lose Iraq, that the Shia people of Iraq will raise up and overthrow him. And that's how come he thought that was gonna move towards him. So he said, look, I gotta put this guy down. We gotta take down these Iranians. And of course the United States was with it because they wanted the Shah back. They wanted the Shah back because Iran wanted to nationalize their oil. You see, you have a company called Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which later changed their name to BP. When Iran want to nationalize their oil, they say, yo, we couldn't stand for this. That's when they say, yo, we gotta do something about this. By the way, the British company, the British Petroleum, they said we gotta do something about this. We gotta take Iran. They funded Iraq. And these devils, it's so crazy how the double crossing and all that shit work, but it's all the politics of the Lord. Because during the Iran-Iraq war, which lasted a good 8 years, ended in a stalemate, Iran was fighting with American airplanes, American military that they had when the Shah was in power, and Saddam Hussein was fighting Iran with Soviet Union military, even though he was backed by the United States during this war. But eventually ended in a stalemate. They did a coup to take Saddam Hussein out. And once Iran got wind, because mind you, even though the revolution was in 1979, all right, that Iran did the Iranian Revolution in 1979, and then people be like, oh, as soon as the Khomeini took over, he was saying death to America, but that's not accurate because they took over in February. It wasn't until 10 months later you started hearing death to America, death to Israel, and all that type of shit. Why they started saying that? Because they got word, because the Shah had cancer, that the Americans was treating him, like trying to make him better, and they was like, yo, so y'all trying to put this nigga back in there. And that's when they turned on America. So all these different moving pieces is the Most High doing that. See what I'm saying? That's the Most High. The international bankers, they only could go but so far with they shit. See, this is the book of Daniel, chapter 4, verse 17. It says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men. So it's the Most High's show, man. You see, these bankers can't determine when the fuck World War III is gonna be. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua determines that, man. They could make plans and the Most High could just take them out. You see? And this dude, Scott Horton, the Edomite, he's really good. But the scriptures prophesy that these Edomites will be telling on themselves and revealing all the secrets, but he goes into it very detailed. And the problem with the United States and these different governments is they'll create these monsters, as they call them, these different leaders, and lose control of them. They'll lose control of them. That's what happened with the invasion of, when Iraq invaded Kuwait. You had certain people in the United States government that was with it, not with it, do whatever you want. This empire is too fucking large with too many departments, and they just, you know, kind of lost track of shit. You know? And again, that is a work of the Heavenly Father. So this ain't no fucking fake war, man. This is a real war, instituted, orchestrated by the Heavenly Father, okay? And the only reason it hasn't escalated into full-blown nukes is not because it's a fake war. It's because Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, the prophecies has to come forth first. I believe, let me see if I can find that in the book of 2nd Ezra, Salakia. Second Ezra, Second Ezra chapter 4. Because the thing with them is, Candace Owens and them is, they're in the world, man. You know, they're in the world. And they do a lot of conspiracy shows and shit, which turns out a lot of times those conspiracies be real. But they're not the prophets. This is the book of 2nd Ezra chapter 4 verse 37. It says, by measure hath he measured the times, and by number hath he numbered the times, and he does not move nor stir them until said measure be fulfilled. All right, so the measure, the prophecy of World War III cannot be fulfilled until what? Until that RFID microchip is mandated. You see, so the Most High is working on the minds of these leaders to be cutthroat with each other, to sometimes do deals with each other. And the Heavenly Father forecasted that through His Son Yahushua, that every kingdom divided amongst itself shall fall. You see? That's what's going to be the fall of Esau's kingdom, because these Edomites are going to go to war with themselves. Your Russians and your Americans, they're all Edomites. All right? They're going to go to war with the so-called Jew. And there's a lot of light being shined on them for some of the shit that they're doing. The so-called Jew. You got this guy, Bibi Netanyahu, that pretty much, they were saying, look, once this war is over, this guy got to go to court for international war crimes. So there's a lot of propaganda you seeing to put fear-mongering, if you will, into people, to say shit like, you know, they just struck Israel, they hit Israel, and they could hit America next. I think they said first. I think they said first Tel Aviv, next expect New York or some shit like that. You see, why they saying that? To put fear in the hearts of the people and just say, look, they should have the right to go bomb those people, because they might bomb New York, if you will, or kill a president. You know, if that assassination attempt did go through with President Trump, they was quick to blame Iran. They was ready to blame Iran. If Trump did get assassinated that day, think about it. It happened on a Saturday, just before the Republican convention, so they wouldn't have time to get a good proper candidate. So Biden would have won. They wouldn't have swapped out Biden for Kamala. They'd have blamed it on Iran, and they'd have everything they wanted. They'd have a war with Iran and a so-called Democratic leader still in play. Now, mind you, it doesn't matter who wins, because they got leverage. They compromise both sides. All right, you know, the Israel lobbyist group AIPAC, they fund both sides. So no matter who's in charge, they're gonna bend their ankles for Israel. But it's just like whatchamacallit? It's like you know, who they wanted, who's more pro-war, who would have funded this better, if you will. Now, this book of Amos chapter 4 verse 13, it says, for lo, he that formeth the mountains and created the wind and declareth unto man what is his thought. Exactly, declared unto man what is his thought. So the Most High stirs the minds of all these different conflicts and shit that you see in the East, throughout the world, as the Heavenly Father stirring the mind. All right, He even stirs the minds of these bankers to fund these wars. You see, in the midst of World War II, you had Ford was sending tanks to Germany, and even sued Nazi Germany for getting their Ford tanks destroyed and won, I believe. Coca-Cola was providing the Nazis with drinks. So people try to make money however you can off these wars, these different big companies. War is money. It says, for lo, he that formeth the mountains, governments, and created the wind, the spirit, and declare unto man what is his thought. that maketh the morning darkness and treadeth upon the high places of the earth. The Lord Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, the power of hosts, is his name. So Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua is declaring and moving the chessboard, if you will. Okay? Alright? So these bankers, yeah, they could fund wars and shit, but they can't declare unto man what a man thought is. You get what I'm saying? That's the Most High. That's how come some of them want World War III for a long time and it still hasn't happened. Why? Because the Lord has not allowed it yet to happen. We're moving according to the Lord's beat. Alright, with that I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushua, Ba'Shem HaKadosh. That belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, which was well. Salutation to the whole elect out there. You Akim to Zadakim that do this thing there most truth and sincerity. Shalom.